Welcome back to my channel, Lulu Loves to Live. Today I'll be talking about autism and the signs that I saw in Makai, my son, who is 3 years, 9 months old. I'll be talking about the different signs between the ages of 1.5 and 2 years, 2 years to 3 years, and 3 years to present. So first, Makai was born at 36 weeks gestation. I did have a couple complications during pregnancy, and as such, I was given steroids to help develop his lungs in case he came early. Now, I am from Tobago, and in Tobago, we have certain superstitions, and one of the main superstitions is do not cut a child's hair before they can talk. Now, I went against that and I cut his hair at 1 year old. He wasn't talking as yet, but his hair didn't really fall out well enough to plait or comb properly. So I decided to cut his hair. Now, another thing is that as a first-time mother, and I was a geriatric mother because I got pregnant after the age of 35, everybody had an opinion to share, and as such, I had a lot of input. Doctors would say one thing, and friends and family would say, oh, that is okay. Doctors does always say that, but this happened to my child. When the child ready, he will talk. When the child ready, he will eat. When he's ready, he will walk, etc. So I had a lot of conflicting information, and coming up in this culture, I didn't know what to listen to, who to believe, what was taking too long. You panic a little bit extra when you have a child at an elder age. So the first thing that we noticed was his speech delay. We found it, a bit unusual that he was taking long to talk. However, many persons told me, again from our culture, boys take longer to talk, so don't worry about it. But there were times when he started saying some words and then he stopped. So for example, he said dada, he said thank you, one day, over and over, and never said them again. There was a time he would say the entire alphabet, not singing it, but just kind of saying under his breath like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, P. So I was like, okay, he's saying the alphabet. And then after that, he stopped. He could have counted a little bit, like up to 5, up to 10, not consistently, but sometimes. And after that, he stopped. So those were really concerning for me. Also, he would do this fan movement by his face, like he will do this a lot, always putting his hands by his face, and I found it to be unusual as well. But again, people will be like, oh, children do these kinds of things. If he was playing with a truck or any kind of toy, he would play with the wheels instead of the truck itself. So for example, if he was playing with a truck like this, he would hardly drive it this way. He would more turn it upside down and spin the wheels and constantly just spin the wheels non-stop. He will spin around a lot and we'll say stop spinning. But as a first-time mother and seeing he's a child, I know little children like to spin around, they like to get dizzy. So we didn't think too much of it. Also, he had a lot of oral stimulation. He loved his pacifier. No matter how many times you try to break him out of the pacifier, he would still find a way to be sucking on something. So there was something connecting him with the feeling. He enjoyed the feeling of oral stimulation, just putting something in his mouth all the time. He also loved to line up toys or line up corks, line up any item at all at home, he would line them up. At times also, he would walk on his toes. Now, he started walking late. He started walking at 15 months. But when he did, sometimes he would walk on his toes. But this is something that you kind of see common in children. So again, I didn't think anything much of it. I was just letting things pass. He didn't have a lot of opportunity to socialize because he was born during the pandemic. So he was born in 2019, and by 2020, when it's time for children to go out to daycare, there was no daycare because the pandemic was upon us. So he was pretty much at home. So I cannot speak to how he socialized with other children because there was no opportunity to do so. So all of this happened between 1.5 years old to 2 years. So at 2 years, 4 months old, after being pressured by my peers, I finally took Makai to be evaluated by a speech therapist. Everybody was saying, no, something is wrong. Everybody else in the family talking because we had like 4 or 5 babies born around the same time, and many of them were starting to talk, and Makai was still baby babbling. So I took him to a speech therapist, and pretty much she said, look, after some socialization, he should be fine, he should be able to speak. That did not happen even after socialization. Also, what I would like to mention is that we, even though around this time we started suspecting something was wrong, we weren't certain because Makai also was diagnosed with two other medical issues at birth that could have affected his brain development. So we didn't know exactly what could be happening for his, because his speech was delayed for this length of time. So between 2 and 3 years old is when we really started noticing different things about him. He wouldn't carry out basic instructions. So we moved to Barbados when he was about 2 years, 10 months old, and got him enrolled in a school. So I had a friend who lived nearby, and her daughter was like 6 months younger than Makai. And she would send her daughter to the bedroom and say, bring wipes, bring Desitin, bring Pampers. And this little daughter will go and bring all these things. But if Makai is right in front of me and I point to something on the ground and I say, pick up this for mommy, he will run somewhere else and pick up something totally different. I found that to be weird, but then everybody said, don't worry about it, he's a boy, boys pick up slower than girls, every child is different, don't study it. So during this time, while he was enrolled in the preschool, he was still nonverbal. But because other little children were talking, you would find that he would scream a lot or be frustrated because he cannot communicate. So he would throw a little bit of tantrum, nothing too terrible, but tantrums nonetheless because he's not able to tell us what he wants, and he could be disruptive at times. He was still lining up toys, but during this time he would do more running up and down. So Makai would do a lot of pacing or running up and down when he was watching this particular cartoon on YouTube. It was a penguin that ran up and down, and he would set up the tablet and run up and down, up and down, up and down. And I'm like, it was an unusual amount of running up and down. I was concerned, but thinking, okay, he's just following the penguin. But he would run up and down for like sometimes almost an hour, just running, until he's sweating. So I was like, that was weird. At this stage, he was still lining up toys, still not carrying out instructions, still frustrated, screaming a bit because he cannot talk, crying unnecessarily because he can't communicate. But so all this time I thought, okay, something is wrong, but we have no real reason to check it out further until sports day at the preschool he was enrolled in. So on July 28th, 2022, this is 1 month after Makai turned 3. So we're now in the stage of the signs that I saw between 3 years to 4 years old. Makai had sports day, and the aunties at the school told me that he may not be able to participate in sports. So I asked, well, why? What's happening? And they said, well, he's not understanding the races. He's not understanding what to do. So I said, well, how complicated could it be? And they said, well, the race is simply run up to a bucket, put in Legos, and run back down. But he would either just totally ignore them or throw out the Legos or just not understand what they were saying. Now, I must mention here that more than once he had hearing tests done. He had it done at Dretchy, he had it done at birth, so nothing was wrong with his hearing at all. He was hearing fine. So when the sports day did come, Makai could not take part in any sports, and it really hurt me inside. I mean, it's nothing the aunties could have done, but I felt sad knowing that I was looking forward to his very first sports day, and here he was, unable to run in any sports. And worse yet, it seemed as if he didn't even understand that he was missing out on something so momentous as his first sports day. So, in addition to all the usual signs I was seeing before, the lining up of toys, the walking on toes, playing with wheels of cars instead of the cars themselves, spinning around, he was fixated on ceiling fans. Anywhere he went and there was a ceiling fan, especially if we're in Grantley Adams where there were some huge ceiling fans, Grantley Adams Airport, oh, he would stare at them and, he would just be fixated on them. The other things he would do, besides just putting his hand by his face like this, he would start to make a sound like, and then sometimes he would rock from one foot to the other like that. And then, only when a friend sent me a video about, what autistic children were doing, like hand flapping, I was like, my child will flap his hands. But then I realized, but wait, Makai is flapping his hands, which is just like doing like that. So I said, oh gosh, like he's really autistic. So I had him screened on September 19th by a pediatrician. And this is pretty much where I had to answer 20 questions based on his behavior. If you have a score of more than 2 out of the 20, the chances of your child being autistic are greater the higher the number. And his score was out of 12. So I will pose some of the questions here that I was asked. So after the results came out, she said pretty much he's at high risk for being autistic. But a developmental psychologist or a pediatric developmental psychologist would be the person who would have to formally evaluate him and confirm a diagnosis. So this was in September in Barbados. So in Tobago, in October, I had him screened again by another pediatrician, and the questions were pretty similar. It was out of 20 again, and the score he got was similar. So, like in one instance, he got 12 out of 20 in Barbados, and in Tobago, he got like 11 or 13, somewhere around the same amount out of 20. So, it was pretty much confirmed that he is that autistic. However, I didn't know where on the spectrum he was. So on January 17th, 2023, I took him to the US to be evaluated, and the doctor confirmed the diagnosis that he is autistic, and he also recommended 3 types of therapy: ABA behavioral, occupational, and speech therapy. At present, I am able to access behavioral and occupational privately in Tobago. And if you would like to have the information as to who I carry him to, please feel free to call the number on the screen, which is 620-5750, and I could give you the information. But I've been unable to successfully get a speech therapist privately in Tobago. The doctor in Manhattan also told me that he cannot say exactly where on the spectrum he is because he needed to reevaluate him after he has been exposed to therapy to see how he responds to therapy before placing him on the spectrum. So his next appointment is in July 2023. So now I'm going to talk about the current signs Makai displays as an autistic child at 3 years, 9 months old. So pretty much he's still nonverbal, meaning he doesn't say mommy, daddy, water, juice, tea, bye-bye. Occasionally he would say okay, but not necessarily within context. So I would still consider him nonverbal. He also has an oral stimulation fixation, so he still has to have a lot of things in his mouth. So I bought some chewable necklaces, so they hang around his neck and they're made of silicone, and so he'll bite at these items. One is like a shark tooth, one is a donut. I'll insert a picture or in the description below I'll put the link on Amazon where I bought the necklaces for him. Um, he also has a nasal stimulation or nasal sensory issue. So he smells everything, not just things to eat, things he plays with, anything he touches, he smells. If he picks up a ball, he smells it. If he takes up a clothespin, he smells it. If he sees normal stuff, a cell phone, he will smell it. He smells everything. Other things that he has done that's different, or that we have noticed, he likes to have his back scratched. Like the vibration does something for him. It helps with his stimulus. And he also likes us to hold him tightly or put a hand over him when he's going to sleep. So he will take our hands and put it over him to just press on him. And when I was speaking to an occupational therapist in the States, she was saying that she recommends weighted blankets for her patients. So also, if he's throwing a little tantrum, another thing that I have researched and I have done that has worked is to give him a good bear hug. Just squeeze him and then he will calm right down. When he's in occupational therapy, the therapist would kind of massage his hands, like hold his limbs and just gently squeeze, coming up towards his forearms, squeeze his legs and just give him a full massage. Just so with his clothes on, and it helps him relax. So now I'm going to speak about three of the main things that autistic children do that Makai doesn't do. So normally autistic children, or even adults, because I'm going to talk a little bit about a TV show I've been watching, they avoid eye contact, and he has excellent eye contact. Those big brown eyes would stare you down directly in your eyes. He has excellent eye contact. Another thing is he doesn't have any aversion to noises. So some autistic children, they have to cover their ears if they're in a very noisy environment, or if any sudden song goes off, or like when we're in church and the music is loud, it doesn't bother him at all, which is really good. And lastly, he socializes well. He loves to play with other children. You know, he would run and he would hold their hands, and he likes to interact with other children, and that is something that's not normal for autistic children. So I'm on the final part of this video, and I am just going to tell you how I feel having known of his diagnosis at present. So I've had mixed feelings about it. And when I look at my child, I see a loving little boy. He is normal, he's happy, he's healthy, he loves to laugh. He has us laughing all the time. He's a good little child with just the most pleasant personality. I also have had so much feedback about the positives of having an autistic child, how gifted and how talented they are, whether academically, musically, arts-wise. You know, they tend to excel, and you just have to find whatever skill they have, that talent, that ability, and hone that skill. So I'm excited about finding out what it is that Makai would excel in. Lastly, I sometimes feel sad, and why is because I've been watching this show Extraordinary Attorney Woo. It's really good. It's on Netflix. And so this attorney, who is really brilliant, when she's out there navigating the real world, and I picture Makai in her shoes, and on the first episode when she was trying to go through a revolving door, something as simple as that, something that we take for granted every day, just the door is going wrong and you just have to get in time so that you could go through. She couldn't get in and she couldn't get out. Because when she did get in, she kept floundering around until she eventually came right back out of the building. The first time I saw that episode, at that point, I cried and I cried and I cried, and I thought, how do I let my child go out into the world and face challenges like this? What if I'm not there to help him through getting on a subway, getting in a maxi, you know, somebody taking advantage of him because they recognize, oh, something may be a little wrong with this child or this adult, let me take advantage of him. So watching that show opened my eyes to seeing what is possible as an adult autistic person, and what Makai may go through as he becomes an adult. And I'm just a bit terrified of what can happen. So it has me a bit sad thinking of the future, but I'm hopeful because I know that with the right therapy and with the right training, coaching, and everything like that, he will be okay. Well, let me see where you want to put that sweetie. Because it have nowhere else to fit. You're going around now.